Kayaru, a young orphan boy, wakes up from the same nightmare he's had for months, a dream in which he fights the great demon lord. Later, he hears the same voice from his dreams, which leads him deep inside the forest. There, he meets a star spirit who grants him the ability to check people's stats. More importantly, however, the forgotten memories of his previous life are returned to him. Kayaru finally remembers it all. In his former life, he was a healing hero in the tyrannical kingdom of Jural. Yet this power came with a heavy price, as each time he healed someone, he had to relive all of their agonizing experience. It drove him mad at first, so he tried to quit being a hero and run away from it all. However, he was captured and abused each time, forcing him to use his healing powers. They made him addicted to grape juice in order to force his participation in battles. The very heroes that he fought alongside treated him like garbage, shaming him for being a hero who can't fight. In those years of agony and spite, Kayaru began plotting his revenge. He secretly harnessed the pain inflicted upon him, growing stronger by absorbing the experiences of his abusers and learning to use his healing magic in unconventional ways. When they finally confronted the demon lord, Kayaru refused to heal his tormentors while they all fell at the hands of the demon lord. The last remaining hero, a sword-bearing hero named Blade, calls Kayaru a useless dimwit and orders him to quickly heal everyone. Kayaru smirks, finally getting the sweet taste of vengeance. Instead of healing her, Kayaru claims the demon lord for himself and lunges after the demon lord. The demon lord unleashes a fury of attacks, but Kayaru simply heals himself back to full health. Upon destroying her barrier, the demon lord's true form is revealed, surprisingly appearing to be a young girl. She sheds tears realizing this is her end, and regrets that she couldn't protect the Philosopher's Stone. The wizard hero of the group, Princess Flare, arrives to applaud him sarcastically. She congratulates Kayaru for defeating the demon lord and says that her father will be pleased. She demands he hand over the Philosopher's Stone, but Kayaru has other plans, to use it to turn back time and seek vengeance. Princess Flare claims he's being crazy. Besides, he would lose all his memories too and simply relive the same life over again. However, Kayaru claims that all those years of pain and torment have been carved deeply into his soul, and that he will never forget the anguish she caused him. Before she's able to stop him, Kayaru uses his powers to revert the world 4 years into the past. With all of his past memories regained, Kayaru swears revenge on everyone who wronged him, especially Princess Flare, having caused him the greatest amount of pain and suffering. Meanwhile, Princess Flare, who has no memory of these events, senses the awakening of a new hero. She travels to meet Kayaru in order to declare him as a hero. Kayaru is brought to the very kingdom that oppressed him, where he encounters Prom, Flare's powerful father and the king of Jural. Kayaru knows he must tread carefully, as revealing his true intentions prematurely could lead to devastating consequences. In the heart of this treacherous palace, Kayaru begins plotting his revenge by clapping all the purposes so he can gain their experience and knowledge. Afterwards, Kayaru is introduced to Kureha, who isn't formally a hero, but a powerful swordswoman nonetheless. He regenerates her amputated arm, then pretends to pass out from the trauma. Merciless and without any concern for Kayaru, Flare orders the court magician to gain control of Kayaru at any cost, no matter how cruel and tortuous his methods have to be. Confirming that Flare is still as heartless and cruel as she was in their previous lives, Kayaru's determination burns with revenge. Pretending to be afraid of absorbing painful memories, Kayaru swears he'll never use his healing powers again. He deliberately acts as he did in his previous life so he can allow the same events to unfold, exactly as they did before. He lets Princess Flare imprison him and get him addicted to purple juice. He even allows himself to be slapped by other heroes, who also do it for educational purposes. For months, he gets repeatedly tormented, having to heal injured soldiers, get clapped, and then fed purple juice over and over until finally, just as he planned, he finally builds a tolerance to purple juice. Having regained his full consciousness from his altered state of mind, Kayaru waits until he hears the news of the king leaving the castle to visit another country. He then escapes the prison he was held captive in. That night, news of his escape spread. Flare's imperial commander, Leonard, eventually captures Kayaru and brings him before her. He claims to have heard Kayaru say something of utmost importance, something which he cannot reveal in front of others. To discuss in privacy, Flare invites him to her personal quarters. Once he's alone with Flare, Leonard removes his disguise, revealing that it's been Kayaru all along. Before Flare can react with her magic, Kayaru quickly subdues her ability to use magic and renders her defenseless. For all the pain and suffering she's caused, Kayaru reveals that he'll exact his revenge, but he generously offers her a way out. If she can stay silent while he works on all 10 of her fingers, he claims he'll her teeth. She manages to keep her silence. Kayaru gets impressed and congratulates her on reaching her 10th and final finger. He then heals her fingers back to their original state and informs her that he'll start all over again. Flare finally lets out a scream, claiming it's not fair, but she loses the game in doing so. She tries to run away from him, but she's unable to walk. Kayaru reveals that he used his corrupting healing powers. He then asks which rod she prefers, the red one or the yellow one. She pleads for the latter. In response, he gives her a gentle slap on the cheek with the yellow rod and lets her have it. Finally, after a long bout of clapping, he informs her that he's going to erase her memory and change her face. She begs him to spare her life, but Kayaru doesn't relent. Instead, he laughs like a sweet and innocent child at the guard Leonard before he escapes with the real Flare, tricking the entire kingdom into thinking that Flare has tragically passed away. To continue his revenge, Kayaru now sets his sights on Bullet and Blade for abusing him along with Flare, but also for the sin of having such creative names. With Flare now having lost her memories, Kayaru renames her Freya and convinces she is his servant and lover. Kayaru himself changes his own face and takes on the name Kayarga the Healer, leaving his weak name Kayaru behind. He claps Freya and she pledges allegiance to Kiaruga, unable to remember a thing about her past life. Kiaruga decides that he and Freya must leave the city to avoid any encounters with Norn, Flare's younger and more sadistic sister. Norn was the first person in his previous life to recognize his regained senses, and Kiaruga is determined to steer clear of her for now. We get another glimpse of Kiaruga's past life, with Flare, Bullet, and Blade all ridiculing Kiaruga during the day. It got way worse in the evenings, as Flare would force him to diddle with her chipotle beans. After she was done, the sword heroine Blade, who was infatuated with Flare, would beat up Kiaruga while calling him vile and disgraceful. Then she would clap him as an indirect way to be with Flare, since she couldn't clap Flare herself. Bullet, the gun hero, got his turn last, also clapping him, but with extra tender love. Kiaruga finally wakes up from his nightmare. These memories reignite Kiaruga's fury, and he swears revenge on Bullet and Blade. Several days after leaving the kingdom of Giorl, Kiaruga and Freya arrive at Lanarita, a lawless city crawling with criminals preying on the poor. They visit a pub, and Kiaruga detects that the town's water is contaminated, which already started making the townspeople sick. Realizing that he could do something heroic while making a lot of money from it, he creates an antidote for the poison and sells it to a merchant, in exchange for half the profits. Later, he visits a black market where he comes across an ice wolf demi-human named Setsuna. Although she's sickly, he finds it interesting that she's filled with the same kind of rage he harbors. So he pays the trader to set Setsuna free, curious about the outcome once she takes revenge on those she hates. After examining Setsuna's memories, Kiaruga discovers that her village suffered a devastating fate at the hands of the Giorl kingdom, much like his own past experiences. Recognizing the shared source of hatred and vengeance, he decides to help Setsuna awaken and assist her in seeking revenge. Initially, she's resistant and fights back, but she soon realizes their power difference is as great as Saitama and Genos. Kiaruga then explains that he can help her unlock her hidden powers, enabling her to get her revenge. To do so, however, he claims he needs to know her true name. Setsuna agrees, even though knowing her true name as an ice wolf demi-human will give him control over her. Kiaruga then claps Setsuna in order to empower her to be a strong and independent woman. The more they clap, the stronger she becomes. Oh yeah. Making their way to Setsuna's village, they find Giorl soldiers persecuting the ice wolf prisoners. Disguised as the sword hero Blade, Kiaruga takes care of soldiers, allowing Setsuna to exact revenge on those who imprisoned her. Upon clearing the village of Giorl soldiers, Kiaruga discovers that the ice wolves had poisoned the water, likely as their way of seeking retribution against humans. He presents Setsuna with a choice: either strengthen the poison to wipe out all humans in Lanarita, or replace it with medicine to save them. Setsuna chooses to save the villagers. They clap again to celebrate their victory, and empower Setsuna to become even more capable. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Joral, King Norn returns and finds out that Kiaruga altered Leonard's face to look like him, and to cover up his escape. Believing that Flare was murdered, Prume orders Leonard to find the real Kiaruga. We're on to episode 5 of the season, and Kiaruga is still living the dream. This time, he claps both Freya and Setsuna. Afterwards, they return to Lanarita, where the merchant finally gets greedy and attempts to force Kiaruga to reveal his formula for the cure. Kiaruga doesn't bother fighting back, and instead gives him a fake formula. It didn't really matter since the water was no longer contaminated and the cure was rendered useless anyways. Later, Kureha unexpectedly appears and launches an attack on Keiruga, believing that he attacked the innocent Gyoral soldiers in Setsuna's village. She's the girl who was injured previously and lost her arm in battle until Keiruga healed her. However, because of his disguise, she doesn't realize who he is. Freya attempts to assist but is quickly overwhelmed by Kureha's prowess. An intense sword battle ensues and Kureha manages to slice off Keiruga's arm. However, Keiruga effortlessly regenerates his lost limb. Then, utilizing his healing powers, Keiruga shares the soldiers' cruel actions and atrocities against Setsuna's village, exposing the kingdom of Jiral's true evil nature. Overwhelmed by this revelation, Kureha faints from the shock. When Kureha awakens, Keiruga reveals his true identity as Kairu, the one who healed her arm. He convinces her by having Freya pretend to be Princess Flare, confirming that Jiral is indeed corrupt, and that Flare faked her own death to escape its clutches. Kureha finally becomes convinced and realizes that she's been fighting on the wrong side all along. Seeing the remorse and regret in Kureha's eyes, Keiruga claps her to offer his condolences. He's such a good clapper that all it takes is a single clap to make her fall in love with him. Realizing that she's also under his control and that she will do whatever he says, he can't help but let out another pure and celestial smile. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Leonard, still stuck in the former body of Kaoru, is pursuing Keiruga with a deep thirst for vengeance. As Keiruga and Kureha's relationship blossoms, Freya and Setsuna become increasingly jealous of their bond. However, their concerns take a back seat when news arrives that Leonard's troops have captured the inhabitants of Keiruga's childhood village. Keiruga instructs Kureha to investigate the situation while he himself disguises and infiltrates Leonard's squad. During his infiltration, Keiruga discovers that Leonard has tormented and forcibly clapped his childhood friend Anna. Keiruga realizes the mistake of giving Leonard his former appearance. He gets enraged upon realizing that Anna and the villagers must have believed it was he who pillaged their village and committed those atrocious acts. Still in his disguise, he lures Leonard and his men into an abandoned building where he quickly subdued them while leaving just Leonard alive. Using his powers of gender-affirming surgery, Keiruga transforms Leonard into a woman. But Leonard remains unfazed. Instead, he taunts Keiruga over what he did to Anna and his village. Keiruga gets his revenge by having a brainwashed squad take turns clapping him. Leonard begs for his life but receives none. Remaining emotionless against his plea, he sets the room on fire, giving Leonard a taste of the suffering he inflicted. When Keiruga eventually finds Anna, he tries to heal her, but it's too late and she tragically succumbs to her injuries. Overwhelmed with grief, Keiruga claps both Freya and Setsuna to drown his sorrow. The next day, Keiruga wakes up from his musky sheets at the return of Kureha, who reports the grim news that the villagers from Keiruga's hometown will face public execution for supporting him, and also informs him that Flare's sister, Princess Norn, has returned from abroad. Keiruga gets wary of Norn as he remembers how cunning and manipulative she was. When the public execution begins, Keiruga reveals himself to save the villagers. He checks all of the soldiers' stats and realizes it's under 9,000, so he doesn't take their threats seriously. He makes swift work of the soldiers that try to capture him. Realizing he's super strong, they change tactics and threaten the villagers instead. However, that doesn't stop Keiruga. As a last resort, they employ a magical barrier to drain his strength. However, he planned for their exact countermeasure, and so Freya reverses the effect. Keiruga continues toying with the soldiers until he discovers that the villagers were previously poisoned and are already dying. No longer required to hold back, Keiruga decides to execute them all, but not by his hands. Just then, Freya reveals herself, pretending to be Flare, and reveals the corruption in Jurel. They don't believe that it's her at first, so she starts singing some sort of anime music. Everyone gets mesmerized and becomes certain that the ghost in the sky is indeed Princess Flare. The crowd turns against the soldiers and tramples them. Afterwards, Keiruga and the gang meet up with Kureha, who decides to continue spying on the kingdom. She warns Keiruga that Norn and her army are heading for the dangerous city of Branica, where demons and humans coexist. Keiruga decides to head to Branica as well, knowing that the demon lord will be there and he's been planning to meet her again. Along the way, Keiruga and the gang make camp, and of course it's imperative at this point that another group clapping session happens, because it's super crucial to the story's plot. Meanwhile, while playing with Legos, Norn hears the news that her sister Flare is still alive and is now working with Keiruga. Freya's incredible power causes her magic staff to eventually break, so Keiruga realizes that he'll need to find a divine weapon capable of handling her immense abilities. Heroes like herself and Keiruga have the ability to wield a special item called a holy armament, an object which transforms into a desired power or weapon after forming a contract with the user. They are the strongest weapons that only heroes can wield. The party finally arrives at Branica, where humans and demons live in harmony, unlike in other places. At a restaurant, they end up sharing the same table with Eve, the demon lord whom Kayaruga defeated in his first life. However, upon checking her stats, she appears to be less powerful and her hair is black instead of silver, unlike he remembered, causing him to realize she is not yet the demon lord. He also learns that she is a member of the Blackwing tribe, whom the current demon lord ordered to be eradicated. As Eve takes her leave, bounty hunters suddenly appear and attack her with a paralyzing arrow. However, Kayaruga's party manages to rescue her. While hiding from the bounty hunters, Kayaruga informs Eve how he met her in the future and reveals that she will become the demon lord. Skeptical of such an extraordinary claim, she doesn't believe him at first. However, Kayaruga insists on protecting her until she claims her destiny and not because he wants to clap her. While she remains doubtful of her becoming a demon lord, she agrees to join the gang for now. Later that night, Eve wakes up and gets startled to find Kayaruga shamelessly clapping Freya and Setsuna right in front of her. With a pure and innocent smile, Kayaruga invites her to be free-spirited and join them, claiming that it's the best part about traveling. However, she doesn't join them that easily, because that'll leave us with nothing to look forward to. The next day, Kayaruga reveals his second most favorite thing about traveling, Campbell's soup in the morning. Afterwards, he strikes a deal with Eve. In exchange for helping her become the demon lord, he wants to have the Philosopher's Stone. He also requests that she end the never-ending battle between humans and demons. While discussing their combat capabilities, Eve explains she can summon the legendary Pokemon Zapdos. Sorry, I mean the divine bird of fatal disease, Caladrius. However, she reveals that in order to make the bird obey her, she has to endure several trials all around the world. But that sounds like a drag. So instead, Kayaruga disguises himself to scout the city and gather more information. However, a bounty hunter recognizes him due to his scent, forcing Kayaruga to effortlessly get rid of him with flair. Kayaruga returns home, and to calm his nerves from a tense encounter with a bull charging at him, he claps Freya and Setsuna. An embarrassed Eve covers her eyes and leaves the room. However, the room isn't soundproof, so she ends up listening in, caressing her jelly donut in secrecy. But Kayaruga's eyes of truth see through it all, and thinks to himself that it's only a matter of time until 3 becomes 4. The next day, Kayaruga and Freya visit a local fair and buy magic staff available. Then, Kayaruga improves the staff with his own magic. His amazing ability sparks the interest of the shopkeeper, who offers to return his money if he improves the other staves in his store. When Kayaruga graciously does, the shopkeeper offers him a mithril sword as a token of gratitude. Just then, the townspeople get frantic over hearing that the Joral Imperial Army is arriving in their town, Branica. Kayaruga sends Freya home and he climbs up a watchtower in order to observe the arrival of Norn and her army. He also sees Blade, the most creative name in all of anime history for a sword-wielding hero. As Kayaruga fumes with anger upon finally seeing Blade in person, he is taken aback by the presence of another powerful individual, Hawkeye, who isn't a hero but still commands great strength. Despite spying from afar on top of a watchtower, Hawkeye suddenly turns back and looks right into Kayaruga's eyes, causing him to panic and retreat to his quarters. The next day, as Kayaruga sells some potions he concocted, the merchant reveals to him that one of his female customers was cruelly clapped by Blade. The news traumatizes him. To regain his composure and seek solace from his troubled mind, Kayaruga claps Freya and Setsuna. Feeling ready to take action, Kayaruga decides to use himself as Kira. The girls fawn over him, and for the love of God, they clap yet again. It takes until the evening when Kira finally heads over to the pub where Blade frequents. Blade catches sight of Kira and immediately gets enticed. She offers Kira a drink laced with a sleeping potion, and Kira politely declines the offer. But Blade doesn't take no for an answer and forcibly feeds her the drink. Blade sings a jolly tune while carrying Kira to her chambers for another evening of clapping. On her way, however, the father of her last night's victim attempts to assassinate her in the dark. The unforeseen situation forces Kira to confront Blade early in order to save his life. An epic battle ensues, but because Blade's sword, Ragnarok, enhances her strength and allows her to heal from injuries, Kira loses the battle. She gets knocked out cold, and later wakes up tied to Blade's bed. Blade tries to clap her but is horrified to discover a yellow rod, not a jelly donut, underneath the sheets. While Blade gets distracted from vomiting, Kira breaks her bonds and poisons Blade, immobilizing her. Blade attempts to grab Ragnarok to heal herself, but Kira puts her to sleep. With a friendly smile on his face, Kayaruga declares it's time for revenge. Kira utilizes her healing powers to access Blade's memories and discovers Norn's plan to attack Branica in 3 days. Then she carries on with her revenge. After paralyzing Blade's legs, Kira introduces her to three men, brainwashed with insatiable desires for both clapping and food. She informs Blade that in order to survive, she has to satisfy all three of them by clapping until the next morning. Otherwise, their hunger will take over and consume her alive. Blade gets an A+ for effort, but eventually meets her demise. With Blade's death, her legendary weapon Ragnarok reverts back into a gem. After transforming back into his true form, Kyaruga goes to the same merchant the next day to sell more potions. There he encounters Hawkeye, who admires the quality of Kyaruga's potions. Hawkeye extends an invitation for Kyaruga to join his army, but Kyaruga declines. Realizing Hawkeye is too powerful for him without a powerful weapon, Kyaruga connects with the gem to form a new weapon. The gem transforms into an infinity gauntlet. A sacred gauntlet that grants instantaneous healing powers to the user. A happy milestone calls for a happy clapping session, so he celebrates with Freya and Setsuna, while Eve again fondles her jelly donut, but this time in the same room. After 3 days of Blade's disappearance, Norn becomes tired of searching for her and deems her worthless. Accusing the demons of Branica of brainwashing humans, Norn commands her army to annihilate everyone in the city unexpectedly. Kyaruga gets furious upon learning that the merchant has been killed. He embarks on a killing rampage himself against the soldiers of Joral. The merciless violence is halted when Freya, posing as Flare, projects a massive hologram of herself in the sky. This time she doesn't have to sing to prove her identity. She urges the soldiers to stand down and declare that demons are not their enemies. Meanwhile, Kyaruga infiltrates Norn's chambers and confronts Hawkeye. A breathtaking epic battle goes down. A battle worthy of being the climactic conclusion to the season. Kyaruga and Hawkeye clash with thunderous intensity, unleashing a cacophony of demons. They are both evenly matched. However, Kyaruga's legendary gauntlet ultimately gives him the edge, leading to Hawkeye's defeat. Norn pleads for her life, but without any hesitation, he knocks her out and imprisons her in an underground cellar. Afterwards, he reads her memories using his healing powers and discovers her role in the devastating attack on his village and the loss of his friends. When Norn finally wakes up, she becomes a forced contestant in Kyaruga's Squid Game. He hypnotizes her sister Freya into acting like an animal, then promises that if Norn can withstand Freya licking her jelly donut without her secreting the jelly in the donut until the morning, he will release her. Obviously, Norn fails the challenge, and the jelly soon overflows to mark her defeat. As punishment, Kyaruga and Freya clap her incessantly. Just like he did with Freya, he then erases and alters Norn's memories and appearance. He gives her a new identity as a girl named Ellen, who now believes she is his little sister and in love with him. With her transformation, this anime finally achieves cramming every trope possible into a single season. When all of the gang reunite, including Kureha, they celebrate their victory. But Eve doesn't join in again, saving herself for perhaps Season 2. With Jor-El now in disarray following Leonard, Blade, and Hawkeye's deaths, as well as Flare and Norn's supposed murders, a vengeful King Prume dispatches Bullet to stop Kyaruga, and Bullet gets eager to clap him again. Meanwhile, Kyaruga grapples with newfound feelings for his companions, realizing he is starting to care for his girls. However, the desire for revenge against Bullet and the end of Jor-El's tyranny consumes him, and he knows that peace will elude him until this quest is fulfilled. And show comes to end. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe our channel for more video like this.